Hello there, welcome to this video. Two parts. The first part, voicings. Second part, slash chords. Enjoy the timestamps below if you wish to jump around. The main thing you need to know to be able to play voicings is your major scales. I'm going to demonstrate everything in the key of C. I may give some examples in other keys, but we'll focus on C because that is all the white notes on the piano and it helps you to visualize and be able to transpose to other keys for practice and homework later. So, it's not too complicated, and I think I'm going to approach this in a different way to others, to give you a freedom to play around. So rather than just giving you all these nice fancy shapes, I'm going to give you the tools to find your own favorite shapes. I think that's going to be more beneficial to you than just copying me. There are, in a voicing, two important notes. That will always be a third, whether it's major or minor, and a seven, whether it's a major seven or the flat seven. If there's a diminished chord, of course the flat 5 comes in, but let's worry about that a bit later. The point of a voicing is that you're not playing, it's implied that you're not playing a bass note at the same time. You may play a bass like that and then come up and play a voicing, or a bass player is playing the bass. The point is that the notes that you play, the bottom note doesn't mean that's the key of the chord. So this is the third of C, it's not the root of E, it's not the 1. Which would mean that that is the flat 5, and it's not. We're in the key of C, so it's 3 and 7. And occasionally I'll play a note just to give you what the sound of the chord feels like by playing that bass note. So the concept of a voicing is building up, that you've got the 3 and the 5, which have to be in there somewhere. It doesn't mean that you play them in order. You don't play a 3 and then a 7 and then a 9 and then a 13 and a sharp 11. You can. That's a nice voicing. There is a voicing with any fingers that you want. That's a nice voicing for C, 13, sharp 11, 9 implied. And the C, of course, would emphasize that sound. If I put a B flat in the bass, it's going to be completely different note values. We're going to get, here would be a sharp 11, this would be the root, this would be the third, this would be the sharp 5 or flat 13, major 7, really weird sound. We play that with a B flat in the bass. Completely different sound. C in the bass. That's where it kind of belongs, that shape, you see? It could be in any key, that's the point. It's the bass note that defines the values of the notes that you're playing, and they can be in any order, like I just demonstrated with that B flat. It started with a sharp 11, root, 3, sharp 5 or flat 13, major set, in the key of B flat. It's all fancy stuff. But all I'm doing, I haven't memorized anything. I'm just saying what the note values are in the key of B flat, because I know the major scale of B flat. And that's why I want you to learn them all. That's why I have a playlist on that stuff. So, 3 and 7 are the most important notes. And everything I say applies like 99% of the time. And then you have what you might call redundant tones, which would be the root, because you don't need to play it. Completely pointless, because it's in the bass. And that's why we're playing voicings, to make it sound more interesting and advanced. And the 5, the regular 5. That is not a voicing, that's just a C7 first inversion. So the point is that you'll take a chord, C7, let's even put a 9 on top, and we'll try and voice it in an interesting way. Well, we don't need the root, we don't need the 5. These are the interesting, important notes. That's the major part, that's the flat 7 or major 7. That would be C major 9, because you've got the major 7 involved. You see minor, major 7 with a 9, and these would be the notes. Sounds weird, but when it's defined by the bass note, those notes make sense. They could appear in another key. They could be the notes in the key of F. Different sound. It still sounds nice. Still sounds nice. Why? Because in the key of F, that would be the flat 7, the sharp 11, which is kind of nice, and that's the 13. So that's like a 13 sharp 11 voicing. You could put the G in there for the 9. So there's a nice voicing for an F13 sharp 11 chord in the key of F. Sounds great. So you can memorize and practice your favorite sounds, of course. If I take out the sharp 11, then that would be an F13 with a 9. The 7 here, the 9 here, the 13 on top. Here I'm not playing a 3, but like I said, what I'm going to say applies 99% of the time. Of course, you can make it a tiny bit sparser by removing. No one's gonna hear you unless they have absolutely amazingly superhuman perfect pitch and say, "Oh, you're not playing an A in there." Like, you'd have to have an exceptionally good ear. The point is that sounds like a 13 with a 9. Of course, you can put the third in there as well. So you can mess around. Do you see what I mean? I'm giving you the tools to play around. So at least get used to playing first the 3 and the 7, whether it's minor or major, and the 7, whether it's major 7 or flat 7. Then you have the redundant notes, which are the 1 and the 5, often. Interesting notes, notes of colour. That's where the jazz part comes in. That's going to be your 9, 11 and 13. 9 and 13 are more common. The sharp 11 and the 11 have a little rule that goes with them. So let's start with the 9 first. The main voicing for a 9th chord is 3, 7, 9, as I demonstrated earlier, but that's like an official, voicing for that chord. So it'd be quite nice to get used to that shape. You play that in the left hand. You're playing around some blues thing. Just sounds nice. The other main voicing comes with the 13th, which is when you put the 7, which is B flat in the key of C, the E, the 3rd in the middle, and the 13 or the 6th, but it's technically a 13 because there's a 7 involved. 7 and 6 makes 13. That's a 13 chord voicing. 7, 3, 6. Another jazzy thing to play. Key of F, E flat, A, D. And what I'll give you now is a little trick. If you play a 9, key of C, and you go up to the key of F and play a 13, you're already playing one of the notes from the F13 voicing. That's the D. So in the key of F now, we need the flat 7 and the 3. So you're just moving 2 notes and getting a very jazzy sound. So chord 1 as a 9, going up a 4th to F to its 13. So when you alternate between a 1, 9 chord and a 4, 13 chord, you only need to move the lower 2 notes down a semitone. Don't think about things like that generally, it just happens to be like that. Still acknowledge the note values. 3, 7, 9, 7, 3, 13. That sounds nice. You just get used to playing that little shape. It's very, very nice. Let's add another note, the 11. The 11, the regular 11, because it clashes with the 3rd, prefers the minor triad, because it avoids that clash. That's quite nice. And 11, because it's an extension, automatically, like every extension, 9, 11, 13, all their alterations, sharp 9, flat 9, sharp 11, flat 13, all the variations, I have a video on this, just link below, they imply that they want the flat 7. So C9, C minor 9, you don't need to say C minor 7, 9, because the 7 is automatically implied, it's a rule of thumb. If I say C minor 11, it's implied that the 7 is there, and you can even put the 9 if you want. Lovely sound. Now that is just root position, that's not a voicing. So how could we make that into a more interesting voicing? What notes don't we need? We don't need the 1 or the 5. So that just gives us this. Minor, 7, it's the flat 7, the 9 and the 11. But you can move that around. So let's put the E flat in the middle. There's a nice voicing for C minor 11. With the F on top, it's nice. And we can put the B flat on top. Keep the same notes, put the B flat on top. And that's a nice voicing for a minor 11. It's one of my favourite ones. The reason that I kind of like that kind of shape is because if we go to C minor 7 as the main chord, it's very, very close. All I'm doing is moving the 5 down to the 11 and the 1 up to the 9. Very, very easy shape to learn. You can even alternate between those two, make it melodic. So it just gives you an interesting sound. And then we can go up to another inversion, put the D on top. This is a very, very nice sound. Look at that. C at the bass. C minor 11. F11 is down here. So it doesn't mean at all that the higher numbers go on top. Absolutely not at all. And of course you can spread it across lots I was only doing it with 4 notes there. You can spread it across many fingers. So let's start maybe on let's put the 11 at the bottom, but the C is in the bass. Let's put the minor next. Let's put the 9 here. Let's double up on the 11. Let's put a 5 in because we can, why not? Let's put the root, let's put the 7 here again and the minor up here. That would be a voicing for a C minor 11 chord. Doesn't sound that bad, does it? So, do you like that sound or not? Who knows? Maybe take out the 5. Maybe put the minor here and not on top, put the 9 on top. It's quite nice. Without the 5, sorry. So I'm doubling up on the 11 there. It's quite nice. The major third bass chords, like C7 or C6, C major 7, anything with a major third, that prefers the 11 to be raised, to be a sharp 11. Because it doesn't have that clash here with the F and the E. So that would be C7, sharp 11. Or you could just say C sharp 11, and it implies the 7. But it's just one of those sort of rules of thumb that you get used to. Often you'll just say C9, C13, but when you have or C minor 11, but when you say the sharp 11, often you kind of say it as if it's added on, like C7, sharp 11, C major 7, sharp 11. You kind of add it. So the sharp 11, just in terms of naming it, is a little bit different, but that's all. But if you write it, you could still write C sharp 11, and any jazz pianist would know that they would have to put the 7 and or the 11 if they want, the 9 if they want to, with that. If you say C major sharp 11, we'll know to play the major 7, because you've said the word major. So we do that. So let's take that chord as an example. C major sharp 11. The 9 is implied or included because I want to, and I've said the word major, so it's major 7. So that's that. Now that leads me into a nice sort of concept which is called upper chord structures. I will do another video on that in more detail, but they do overlap a little bit. If I take out the 1 and the 5, this is not the upper chord structure part yet, this is just the voicing part. That's a nice little voicing, but the E is a little bit too far away, so let's just put the E in the middle. There's C major sharp 11, C major 9 sharp 11. Nice little shape. Just think that in its open form, it's all this, and yet I can compact it into this. That's why voicings are so fun. There's so many variations, and again, I can put the B on top and just do that. Then you highlight that B on top. Let's maybe double up on the D. And you get that. We can take it off the root if we want to. So there's so many variations. So the main point when you're experimenting with all this stuff is that you find the root chord position when you're learning these until you choose your favorite ones and put them into your muscle memory, so to speak, into your fingers. The main concept is take the 3 and the 7, whether it's major or minor or major 7 or flat 7. Remove the 1 and 5 because they're redundant unless you're playing a diminished. Let's do a half diminished chord to demonstrate that. Half diminished is minor 7 flat 5. Key of C, minor 7, the 5 is flattened. So that's now an important tone. So technically, what looks like E flat minor isn't, because we're in the key of C. So very important. So a 9 works with this. 9 works with everything. So that looks like E flat minor major 7. E flat minor major 7. It's funny. But it's not. We're in the key of C. We're not in the key of E flat, which would sound like a minor major 7. We're in the key of C. So it's half diminished with a 9 on top. C9 half diminished. So we can voice that in any way, again, that we want. But you have to have at least those 3 notes in it somewhere. So let's start on the flat 5. Let's go, so in the key of C, flat 5, 7, let's put the 9 here, the minor here, and the flat 5 here again. Let's do it with one hand, so you can follow along, like that. But in the key of C. Weird sound, but possible, completely okay. Maybe take out the lower F sharp and leave it like this. Half diminished, with a 9 on top, well, in the middle. So there's another opportunity. Instead of giving you a huge list of voicings to learn, I want to give you the tools to be able to identify your own, but emphasize and focus on the important chords in important keys. The most important keys are C, F, G, E flat, and D flat. And the most important chord types are your regular 7, your major 7, and your minor 7. And they all like the 9. The 13 works with all of them, even though it's the least nice sounding when you put the 13 with the minor 7 chord. It's like just on the border. It's my least favorite chord, so you can mess around with that. So let's just do like, let's put the 13 and the 7 together, put the 9 here, the minor here, and well, that could be it. That is C minor 13 as a voicing with a 9 implied. It's possible sound. So play around with that. Major 7, regular 7, and minor 7. And then try it with the 9, which goes on all of them. And the sharp 11, which likes major third bass chord types, which is major 7 and 7. The 11 prefers minor chord types, minor 6 even. It's quite nice, so you could do that. And have fun. Maybe share a comment below on the favourite ones that you have found. And eventually you'll start to use some that you like. Now, I did mention the upper chord structure concept. It's like a cheat code in a way. So, for example, if I want to play that major C major 9 sharp 11 chord, there's a cheat. So this is not necessarily a voicing. It's just a way of seeing the chord. This is in the key of C, major 7, 9, sharp 11. But within itself, it looks like B minor triad. If I play it in the key of B, it sounds minor. But it's not in the key of C. So it's not going to sound like B minor triad. This is what you'd call an upper chord structure. You label the top part as it looks like within its own key. So here you would say, if you play a minor triad on the major 7, you get the 9 and sharp 11. It's like a cheat code. If I play a major triad on the sharp 9, I get the sharp 9, the 5, and the flat 7. So look, if I play C, 7, I'll just play the simple voicing part and combine the two ideas. 3 and 7. A bass player, or my left hand as a bass note is playing C, and I play on the sharp 9, D sharp, it's major triad, I get the sharp 9 and the 5, which is safe, and the flat 7 on top. So now you can just remember that as a concept. Oh, if I play the major triad on the sharp 9, that's safe. That gives me the sharp 9 and the flat 7 and a redundant 5, which is safe. And you can just remember that. So in the key of F, that would be G sharp. Just play that on top. And you get that sharp 9 and the safe 5 and the flat 7 on top. So you see what I mean? It's just a way of, but I'll go into that in more detail in another video. Now, briefly, slash chords. The main point of slash chords is when the composer wants you to have a particular sound. Elton John does it a lot. I'm just thinking of the part in Your Song. It's in the key of E flat. And there's the middle part, it goes... sorry, down to B flat. Okay, let's come back to it. Then it goes on to A flat, major 7. But that, he specifically wants you to do C minor 7 with a B flat in the bass, and then C minor 7 with an A in the bass, instead of labeling them as whatever those notes would be in the key of B flat, which is far too complicated to name. This is too much, it's silly. It's like A half diminished, it's just silly. Why not just play C minor forward slash B flat, C minor forward slash A, and that's how you write it. My pen is away from me, unfortunately. But you just write that as C minor, and then C minor forward slash B flat to emphasize that bass note. The note which is after the slash is the note in the bass. C minor forward slash A. He wants you to do that. And it sounds quite nice. If I don't do that, listen to how boring it is. And then to it sounds so boring. But listen to that nice transition, that melodic movement down to A flat. just lands perfectly onto the A flat. The same thing happens in Georgia. F major 7, E half diminished, A7 basically, D minor 7, D minor /C, B flat, or B flat minor actually, as it drops down onto A minor 7. So it just sounds nice. F major 7. Here. As it goes down to B flat minor. It just sounds nice. So they are the ideas. That's the idea of a slash chord. So you get that smooth transition movement. It also, if you write, for example, C/E, it means play the C chord, but the E must be the lowest note. It's when the composer wants you to emphasize the lowest note. That's the only reason that they do it. You can take that further and you'll create something called a pedal point, where you keep the same note in the bass, but the chord changes. So if I keep playing C in the bass and I play C in the chord, and I might go to E flat, D flat, D minor, B, ooh, interesting sound, A minor, G. These are all /C, A flat, in the C, /C, F, F/C, that is, and then back to C. So that's called a pedal point, and it doesn't change. So you can see that instead of writing all these complicated chords, you just go /, keep the C in the bass, /, keep the C in the bass. It all sounds so different. So interesting, isn't it? Another way of doing it is if a composer wants to, this is not really done in jazz, it's more of a kind of lazy pop way of writing it, where you would write, for example, we were talking about like extensions and upper chord structures. If I write D /C, that would mean play a D triad over a C. It would imply that the C is the bass and the key, and that the D shape, like the upper chord structure, is giving me 9, #11, 13. So it's kind of a lazy way to write fancy chord extensions. But since you don't really see that too much in jazz, because the jazz musician or the composer would simply write C major 13 #11, and you'd play that anyway. But if you want to, you can do that kind of thing. You just mix two notes, two chord types in a way together. If I just make one up spontaneously, I'll just say, what can I say, like G over E flat. I don't know what's going to come out of that yet. So that would mean that I'm getting the 3, the #5, and the major 7. Very interesting, over E flat. It's just a very lazy way of writing certain things. So you'd write G over E flat, whereas you could just write, E major 7, #11, and you get the same result. But the main thing is it's mainly about that smooth movement in the bass, and you can do that. So I've explained about the pedal point, where the chord changes. Very interesting kind of thing to do. Another thing is that you keep the chord and move the bass. So in this case, you'd write like C major 7, and you're going to go /B, C major 7 /A, /G, /F, /E, see, /D. So you can do exactly the same thing like that. So the slash chords are really, it's when the composer is forcing you to emphasize melodic interest in the bass, just like that Elton John example. And then onto A flat. And if you didn't do that, it just sounds so boring. It absolutely has to be that, really, doesn't it? So that's the idea. Play around with all that, come up with some nice sounds, and share what you've discovered. I'll do upper chord structures in detail in another video. There you go. Thanks for watching. See you in this video. All the best, and bye for now.